Now we have created a Gradio application, Streamlit application. Both the application has web UI, so user can enter the data and get the prediction on the front end only. So we have created a user interface so that anyone can access the model using that particular UI. For that we have used two frameworks, Gradio and Streamlit. Now what we will do, we will create an API. API is an application programming interface. So API does not have any UI. And once we create an API, we can merge that API with any existing web application. So let's say your entire web server is running on Java. So we can create a Python API and then Java server can talk to our Python API using application programming interface. So for this particular project also, we will create an API. So in short, we will not have any user interface to access the model. For that, we will use Python request library as well as Postman to test whether the API is properly working or not. So now we'll again move on to the PyCharm and we'll create one .py file for API development. Okay. So I have already created flask-api.py file in the same project directory. First thing, you need to import the models. So for API development, we are going to use Flask library. Then importing logging module also. So it is better to use logging instead of print statement, because when you use logging on your application, you can log the entire history of the application, like what is the input we got and what response we are sending. So it is always good to use logging in all application as per industry standard. Now config I have already created. From config I am importing model path and scalar path. Then joblib for loading the models that we have already trained and fitted on the train data. NumPy for numerical preprocessing. So first thing here again, joblib.load model path, joblib.load scalar path. So in this particular path, we are loading the model object as well as scalar object. Once we are done with that part, I have declared the inference pipeline. So again, we are using this inference pipeline for the fourth time. First time we have used it on Jupyter Notebook to test the function, to test the input and output, whether we are getting correct prediction or not. Then we use the same inference pipeline function on Gradio. Third time we use it on the Streamlit application, and fourth time we are using this inference pipeline function for API building. Okay. Now inside the, so we have created this inference pipeline. This is end-to-end function. Now when you use logging, you need to first declare the logging configuration. So this is a constant format that you can use. Means basically you are here, you are declaring how the logging message should be displayed, like date, then category, logging category, and message. So this is a configuration for the logging. Now to create a Flask application, first you need to create a app object using Flask framework. So here I have created an app object. Now the first thing I have done is app.route. So in every application or website, there are multiple routes. For example, if a user visit for xyz.com, then user will first land on the home page, that is home route. So if user click on sign in, then .com/sign in, so that is another route. So every application has multiple route. So here I have created first route slash, that this slash indicate that it's a home route. So whenever we start this particular server, it will first return the sleep disorder prediction API is running message. So if you see, this entire text data is inside the tag h1. So basically this particular app route will render this particular HTML tag, because whenever a user will go to this particular route, it will trigger the index function, and this index function is nothing but this HTML tag. It will return this particular HTML tag, and we can see this particular message on the browser window. So this is first route, and in the second route I have created the API. So first let's run this Flask server and see whether it is working or not. Okay. So to run the Flask server, all you have to do is create name double equal to main, means we are running this Python script via main object, and inside that you need to mention that whenever we run this Python file as a main object, it will start running the application. So app.run will run the application. Host is 0, 0, 0. Means if we are running this particular project on my local environment or local network, then all the computers which are present in that local network can access my API. So other computer in the same environment, same local network can send the request to my machine. So my machine will act as a server and other machine will act as a slave. Like it's a master slave architecture. So other machine will be act as a client, my machine will act as a server. Okay, so there will be one master and other will be the slave computer, like that. So port number is 5080, means from which particular entry gate the request will come. Debug equal to false, same, we are not debugging now. So let's execute this code. To run this Flask API.py file, you just need to click on this file, or you can run it from this button also. So right click, run Flask API.py, and after few seconds you will see this kind of message that Flask app is running, debug mode is off, and warning it's a development server. So this particular server we can use only for the development, not the deployment. Now it is running on this particular IP address like 127.0.0.1. Now this particular IP address is a local host IP address, means only I can access that. And this particular IP address is a local host, it's a local host IP address only, but anyone can access this particular IP because it is currently on the same network. So let's say if I click on this particular IP, it will open up the Chrome browser, and here we can see sleep disorder prediction API is running. Now all the computers and mobile which are in the same network, they can access this particular website. So they just have to enter this particular IP address and port number in the browser, and they can able to see this entire message. So this is just a test whether our application is properly running or not, using one route which is home route. Now let's create another route. Okay, so currently it is running. Now let's terminate this entire server. Now we will run another route. So inside this particular another route, I have created /prediction. So this /prediction will work as a API. Now see, here I am mentioning that method is equals to post. So post means we need to post some data, then only we can get the output. But in this particular route, we have not mentioned get or post. So by default, it will work as a get. So whenever a user will visit this particular route, that user will get this data. But in this particular route, user needs to post some data. And how we are going to post? Using Postman or request library. Okay. So first we will declare the functions that will trigger whenever a user will go to this particular route /prediction. So once a user goes to this particular route /prediction, it will trigger this function predict slip. Now inside this function I have written try and except. So try and except is basically used to handle the exception inside the code. So in short, let's say if you run this particular logic and you face any error or issue, then except block will run and it will throw the message that error in prediction API something, and it will return the error code to the client architecture. Okay. But let's say if this particular code is working smoothly, then this particular block will not execute. So this try and except is similar to if else. If everything is working, then else won't work. But if this particular part will not work, then else block will execute. So try and except is used to basically handle the error or exceptions in the code level. So inside the try block, I have written that request.json is equals to data. So if a user goes to this particular route /prediction, then this particular function will extract the JSON data from the request, and that JSON data we will store inside the data folder. So this is a backend part. Now, once we get the data, we can log one message API request dash percent as data. So it will log the message, and inside that message we can see what we got the data for the request part. Then whatever the data we got in the request, we will pass that data to the return prediction function. So this return prediction function will take model object as an input, scalar object as a input, and data which we got from the request. And then return prediction function will run the basic pre-processing and model prediction, and then we will get the result. So once we get the result, we can again log the messages like API prediction result, percent s, and the final output. So we can see what was the input in log message, and after prediction we can see the final prediction from the model as well. And then once we got the result, we can convert that result into a JSON format, because it is better to use JSON format for the request and response. Whenever we build API, we have to follow this kind of guidelines. Okay. Now, if you face any error, then it will execute this particular block. Okay. So this is route 1, which will just display the message sleep disorder prediction API is running, and another route which will take the JSON data from the request, and this request we got from the user, and then it will pass that data to the return prediction. Return prediction function will return the result, and we will return the result to the client. So this is a API part. So let's execute this particular code first. So to run the entire server, you can just click on this green button, or else you can right click on run Flask API. It will start the server. Okay. Now the server is running, but how do we send this request to the server? So let's say if you go to this link, and here you will get message that sleep disorder prediction API is running. But if you pass / prediction endpoint entire URL and click on enter, it will show you the method not allowed message. That means first, if you go to this particular route, you need to post the data, but we have not post anything yet, and there is no option to post the data because there is no HTML form, there is no user input. So how we will post the data to this particular endpoint? So what we will do, I will just copy this particular endpoint, and let's go to Postman. So we will use Postman application to send the request to this API. So Postman is an application that is used for API testing. So you can download this Postman application. Go to Google, just type Postman, click on download Postman, and then from here you can download the Postman. Once the file is downloaded, you can click on next. It will install the Postman application. Once the Postman application is installed, you can open that application and sign in with your personal email ID. Then you can see this kind of home page. Now in this Postman application, you need to create one request. So go to home page, you will see this particular view, and from this particular home page, you will have my workplace. If there is no workplace, you can create your own workplace. Now let's click on my workspace. Okay. Now on the connect, if you click on collection, then there will be new button. So click on new button and select this HTTP method, because we want to create an HTTP request. Now in this particular HTTP request, we just need to fill 3 things. First is URL that we have already copied from the web browser. So I will just copy the entire URL at this location. And in PyCharm, if you see the method for /prediction, it is a post method. So let's change that as well from get to post. Now we also need to copy the data which we are sending to the model. So we have already created that data. Let's go to Jupyter Notebook. Okay, this is the data, JSON data that we are going to send to the model. So I have copied that. Now go to body, raw, and here paste the entire data. And this data is a JSON format. So you need to select from this particular drop down button, select JSON data and click on beautify. So this is the JSON data that we are going to send to this particular API, and this is the method. Now, before clicking on the run button, first check whether the server is running or not. So yes, server is running properly. Now let's go to Postman and click on send button. Now the moment I click on send button, this particular data will be sent to this URL, and on this URL our backend server is running. So that particular backend server will extract the JSON data from this request, and then it will process that JSON data, and in response we will get the model prediction. So let's try sending this to the request. So I will click on send button, and here we got the prediction. So prediction is none, means the person does not have any sleep disorder. Now let's open the PyCharm, and you can see we have logged the messages. So info root API request. So we got the API request, and this is the data like gender, age, occupation and all. And after this we got prediction result using this log message. So prediction result is none. That means our Flask API is working properly. But notice one thing, we do not have any user interface to utilize this particular web application. So we only have to rely on the API. So let's say if a person wants to utilize this API in their existing web application, then they can just integrate this particular URL using request format. Now let's say if I want to do this in my Python web application, I have already created one Python web application and I want to merge this API to my Python web application. Then I can write a Python request code, and then anyone who wants to access that Python web application, they can just fill that form, and if someone click on that button, I will get that particular request in my backend server. Okay. Now let's say if you do not have this kind of Postman application, so how you will access your model? So what you can do, you can go to this particular code section in Postman only. Okay. Now from here you can select the language. So let's say if you want to merge this particular API application to any of the existing server, let's say Java, JavaScript and all. So let's say if I click on JavaScript, I will get the entire code for the JavaScript API. So I can simply copy and I can add that particular code inside my JavaScript application. So that particular JavaScript application will talk to my Python web application, Python API server. So this is how API is integrated with existing application. Now let's say if you don't have Postman, then we can use Python request library. So let me select Python request, and this is the entire code. So I will copy this entire code, no need to write again. Now my server is running currently. So what I will do, I will simply open a new terminal, and here I will run the Python. Okay, wait, before running the code, first I need to create that. Let's go to new file, Python file, and then request. Okay, that's it, request, and inside the request I will paste the entire code. So this entire code contain two imports, URL, which on this particular URL our backend server is running, and then this is the JSON data. And using this particular URL, we will send the request to this URL, and the method is post. And here we will get the response, and whatever response we will get, we will print the text version of it. So now we have created a request.py. Let's execute this. So Python request.py and enter, and see we got the output. So without using Postman application also, you can test your API using this particular code, and for that we are using request library. So let's go to the main main terminal where we have executed the code. Yeah, services. Yeah, not services, this part. Now see, we got this API request and we send this particular response at this particular time. So we have successfully created an API using Flask, and we tested that API using Postman also. We got the response, and then we have written the request and JSON library. JSON we have imported request library and JSON library to send the request to the same server. So this Flask API server is running in one terminal, and we have executed this particular request.py file in another terminal. So now my computer is acting as a server as well as client machine, because I'm sending request to my current server only. So both client and server running in same computer. So this is how you can test your API, and you can integrate your API to any of the existing application. Now, after this, we will move on to the next topic, which is building the web application using Flask, HTML and CSS. And then we will deploy the application in cloud services.